Okay. All right. So the special guests have arrived and we can get going now. Good afternoon. Wow, this is big and imposing. Thank you all for being here today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Feng Shenghu, the Richard G. Engelsman Dean of Arts and Sciences, and it's my honor to welcome all of you to the installation of Crickette Sanz as the James W. and Jean L. Davis Professor in Arts and Sciences. It is wonderful to see so many colleagues and members of our WashU community here today. I would also like to welcome everyone joining us on our live stream. Thank you for helping us mark this special occasion. We are delighted to have several special guests in the room today. They are Crickette's family members, her husband Dave Morgan, and their children Sky and Miles. We are also so pleased to have Jim and Jean Davis's daughter, Claire Davis, one of our own graduates sitting there as well. Will all of you please stand to be recognized? Thank you for joining us on this special occasion. It's so nice to be back at Whittemore House for our first installation ceremony of the new academic year. These special events allow us to pay tribute to the academic excellence of our faculty, the collaborative spirit of our community, and the generosity of our donors. Our honorees today, Professor Crickette Sanz and Jim and Jean Davis, represent truly the very best of arts and sciences. They are leaders who have invested deeply in the communities we care about. Their devotion to WashU and the world will serve as a powerful source of inspiration as we head into a new academic year. As many of you know, we are well into the decade of arts and sciences, a period of significant growth that will position us as a global model for research, teaching, and scholarship. This year, we will benefit from enhanced campus facilities, a large cohort of talented new faculty, and a major ramp up of our strategic plan initiatives. Crickette Sanz has played a pivotal role in one of these signature initiatives, the Living Earth Collaborative, as co-director with Professor Jonathan Lossos. Somehow accidentally promoted Jonathan Cohen to a professor. As co-director with Jonathan Lossos, Crickette has helped to grow this vibrant partnership between WashU, the Missouri Botanical Garden, and the St. Louis Zoo. These institutions are working together to establish St. Louis as a global leader in biodiversity research, conservation, and education. Crickette is a passionate advocate for international collaboration on biological conservation, serving as co-director of the Gualogo Triangle Ape Project and Mandika Gorilla Project in the Republic of Congo. These important projects are increasing our knowledge of the chimpanzees and western lowland gorillas that reside together in the forests of the Congo Basin. Importantly, her efforts include working with locals to mitigate the threats facing these endangered species. This combination of long-term research and local partnership has positioned her to influence conservation policies on a global scale. Crickette's participation in leading conservation and science programs speaks to her incredible international reputation. She has been a research fellow with the Wildlife Conservation Society's Congo program, served on the executive committee of the Primate Specialist Groups section on Great Apes for the International Union for Conservation of Nature, and being a member of the expert working group on animal culture and social complexity for the United Nations Convention on Migratory Species. We are incredibly fortunate that Crickette decided to join our faculty of the Department of Anthropology in 2009. And in just a few minutes, you're going to hear a lot more about her impressive career at WashU from Department Chair Rebecca Lester. And now I would like to turn our attention to our honorees of this, to the other two honorees of this endowed professorship. Jim and Jean Davis were integral members of the WashU community for many decades. Jim joined the WashU faculty in 1968 as an associate professor of political science. He spent 43 years teaching in the Department of Political Science and serving as a university leader. Jean was also active in campus life as a member of the Elizabeth Danforth Butterfly Garden Committee and president of the Women's Club of Washington University. Jim earned a bachelor's degree from Harvard and a master's degree and doctorate from the University of Michigan, where he met Jean. She went on to earn a bachelor's degree from Michigan and a master's degree from the University of Wisconsin. The couple was married for more than 50 years. Professor Davis's research, teaching, and scholarship centered on American politics. He studied the United States presidency, campaigns, military history, the politics of war, and national security. A frequent commentator in the media, his essays appeared in major news outlets such as the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, and the Chicago Tribune. Jim Davis's contributions extended far beyond the classroom through his numerous leadership roles as Vice Chancellor for Students, Acting Dean of the School of Art, Director of the Teaching Center, and Founding Director of what is now the Gephardt Institute for Civic and Community Engagement. In 1997, he received a Distinguished Faculty Award, and in 2002, he was honored with the Dean's Medal in Arts and Sciences. We are grateful for Jim and Jean Davis's many contributions to WashU and their investment in our future. This professorship in their honor allows us to recruit and retain talented faculty members such as Crickette. And now I would like to invite Rebecca Lester, Chair and Professor of Social Cultural Anthropology, to the podium to share more about Professor Sanz.
Oh, wow, this is a full room. This is fantastic. It is my great pleasure to be here with all of you today to celebrate Crickette Sanz in her installation as the James W. and Jean L. Davis Chair of Arts and Sciences. I was going to give an account of her career, but Dean Hu did such a lovely job of hitting the highlights. So I think what I'm going to focus on instead is to tell you some things that you might not know about Crickette from looking at her many, many accomplishments in her illustrious career. We could talk about her corpus of publications, her high-profile research grants, her awards, her involvement at WashU with the Living Earth Collaborative, her outstanding work in the Department of Anthropology as a teacher and as a colleague. But I'm going to share some other things with you. Sometimes in academia, as most of you know, brilliance, like Crickette's, comes with a, shall we say, prickly personality. But nothing could be further from the truth with Crickette. As one colleague notes of her, Crickette is unquestionably the most supportive colleague I've ever had. I always leave my conversations with her feeling incredibly positive because of her infectious enthusiasm. Crickette is also a keen and visionary scientist who always gives the best advice and perspective on how to successfully lead an innovative and impactful research program. I am in awe of Crickette. Her contributions to African ape behavioral ecology and conservation are extraordinary. Another colleague had this to say: Crickette is a force of nature. I have never before seen a scientist so completely dedicated to her research program. She's responsible for raising money, handling logistics, training staff and students, and directing science for a team of dozens of people, all while operating under the constraints of working in a challenging field setting. All of this happens alongside the teaching and service she provides on campus at WashU. I get exhausted just thinking about it. And yet, as our students say, she's killing it. She is internationally recognized as one of the most significant primatologists in the world. WashU is very lucky to have her, and I'm lucky to call her my colleague. I think what truly says the most about someone, though, is how they interact with those over whom they have authority. And so I talked to some of Crickett's former students, and here's what a few of them had to say. Crickette is absolutely the best. She is selfless in every sense of the word, and particularly altruistic and empathetic as a mentor. She not only seeks opportunities for her students, but she cultivates them so we can thrive, or shine, as she would say. She has a way of knowing what we need even before we know we need it. She is steadfast in her unwavering support of every single member of our research team. To all of us, Crickette is an all-around hero. And another former student had this to say. What is it like working with Crickette? Her older students affectionately call her Mama Crickette. This name speaks to her superpower. She is stern, but so loving with the biggest and most generous heart. She will push you to be the best version of yourself, but is understanding and shows you grace, mercy, and compassion. She lets you make your own decisions, but protects you. You are never alone, no matter what. She's going to let you bump your head, but will teach you all you need to know along the way. She sets the standard professionally, but allows you the space to be human and emphasizes the importance and balance in your personal life. I could not have built a better mentor to train under. She is the standard. And I just want to echo all of these sentiments from Crickette's colleagues and students that since I've known you, you are the standard. When I see Crickette walking down the hall, we stop, we have a short exchange, and I am in awe of the brilliance of your science and just the graciousness of your person. And we are all so lucky to have someone like Crickette here to be part of our community here. Crickette is literally one of the most dedicated, generous, and supportive colleagues I know. She's deeply compassionate, a consummate team player, and gives 100% to any task she takes on, whether big or small. You might think someone who does all the things that Crickette does would be too important to take care of some of the things that go into running a department on a daily basis, but never. She is right there. She's right there. She is, in short, not only an exemplary anthropologist, a model scientist, but a truly exceptional human being. And I can think of no one who deserves this honor more than Crickette Sanz. So please join me in congratulating her.
Okay, so Professor Sanz, I present you with this medallion as a symbol of this new endowed appointment. The front reads, James W. and Jean L. Davis, Professor in Arts and Sciences, Washington University in St. Louis, Arts and Sciences. Engraved on the back, Crickette Sanz, September 4th, 2024. So here it comes. It's I think she wants a photo.
Get some tears out of the way.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for those very kind remarks, Dean Hu and Chair Lester. I'm so grateful and humbled by these words and these sentiments. Thank you for sharing them. And thank you all for being here this afternoon on this beautiful day. It's wonderful to see so many friends, old and new. This is amazing. And my family and my colleagues together in one place. This is a rare occasion. Thank you. So I'd like to start with some acknowledgements. I would like to thank Jim and Jean Davis and their family. And so grateful that you're here, Claire, to join us for this celebration. And Fiona Marshall is here, the inaugural holder of the Jim and Jean Davis professorship. Can we give Fiona a round of applause, please? It's so wonderful to be here to celebrate together, and it really is a tribute to Jim and Jean Davis, their family, and Fiona, who have created this professorship and this wonderful tradition. Thank you so much. I would also like to thank the top-ranking department of anthropology in the country and also the world, I believe. We have the most spectacular colleagues who do phenomenal research and mentor students, and it is such a delight to be a part of that community. Rebecca's comments, I think, apply to all of our faculty, every single one of you, for all of your contributions. Thank you so much for being so welcoming and all around wonderful. I would also like to share this award with the field teams in Congo. Dean Hu mentioned the Guloko and Mandika field sites in Republic of Congo. The teams have returned to the camp already. They're in their tents and resting, but undoubtedly they've had an amazing day with chimpanzees, gorillas in the forest, and their dedication is really unparalleled. And also the teams here in Congo in the research laboratory in the third floor of Macmillan Hall, watching videos, going through spreadsheets, not as fun as encountering gorillas and chimpanzees in the wild, but so important. And this is just the current team. There are teams that have been 25 years working on these different projects. And I thank you all for all that you have done for this research. I am just one person in this team, and I missed the Summer Olympics. I was in Congo, but I think teams get medals. So I want to give everyone in the team medals, if we could. And I will also mention that there's someone in these pictures who would receive multiple medals. And that would be David Morgan, who is the best co-PI. Second medal, best husband. Third medal, best dad. These are my fellow explorers, and I'm so grateful that when I say we have the opportunity to go someplace, their bags are packed and they're out the door before I can even finish the sentence. It's been such an amazing journey together. So I'd like to give a brief overview about my remarks regarding research and whatnot. I would like to talk about how I've developed 4 guiding principles from my early research years to focus on interdisciplinary research, research that's deeply insightful, innovative, and impactful. I'd then like to transition to how Washington University specifically has really helped to boost my career and had a transformative impact on what I do. And I'll talk about how day-to-day research has become discovery and innovation, and also how we've taken risks that would have stopped research and turned these into opportunities for solutions. I'll also talk about how site-specific practices have become global policies, and then how we've taken research on campus to the communities, both in Congo and here in St. Louis. And if you will indulge me, I'll just share a few outlooks of the week as being the Davis professor and what I'm excited about. So my career began in education at the university level at Central Washington University. And it wasn't certain that we would go to college, that I would be able to go to college. The first quarter, I can remember arriving on campus and thinking, if I can just get to these classes, maybe I'll be able to go another quarter. So I really savored every lecture. I even enjoyed the exams. I thought, this is fantastic. And then I got to go another quarter, and I could still think, how could we get to 4 years at this amazing institution? But it happened, and I was sad that it was going to end, but then I found out there's a thing called a master's degree that you could pursue and a PhD, and I'm still here with the same enthusiasm for learning and being a part of the educational process, and also now engaging in research and whatnot. But that started at Central Washington University, and I'm grateful for that opportunity. I thought I would major in law or business, but then I met 5 chimpanzees that knew American Sign Language. WashU is the first non-human to acquire a human language. She was cross-fostered as a human child by human parents that knew American Sign Language. And so we could converse with her using sign language. And when I was a child, I was fluent in sign language because my best friend was deaf. And so I volunteered for the opportunity at the research laboratory. And when you pose a question to a chimpanzee and they answer, it's intriguing. And that changed my whole career path. I also was delighted that you could be paid to conduct research and have a career doing this. And so my first summer research project on the social hierarchy of signing chimpanzees was something that I was very enthusiastic about, and looked into the literature on wild chimpanzees. And you would predict that the dominant individual would be an alpha male who would rule through aggression and suppress others in his group. So the largest male DAR would be predicted to be the alpha. But it was actually WashU who was an alpha female. And an alternative pathway to dominance is through prestige. And that's exactly how WashU led her group. She reconciled when there was conflicts. She made sure everyone got along afterwards. She maintained stability in the group, but she also taught me that environment can influence behavior, that there can be flexible responses to your social group and your ecological environment. So I spent 6 years there, obtained a master's degree in experimental psychology, and they said, it's time to leave. There's no PhD program here. But when I was at graduation, the first folks I wanted to see were the chimps. And so that's the picture saying goodbye to WashU. As I was interested in expanding my academic horizons to look at questions about the evolutionary forces that shaped our hominid lineage, and also about primates as part of communities in dynamic ecosystems. So I decided to focus on biological anthropology. Well, I looked around the country. Where is the best anthropology program in the United States, if not the world? Washington University in St. Louis. And we also had this strength of strong representation in the other subfields. We had a strong archaeology program and a strong sociocultural anthropology program, and I really needed that training. So I was fortunate to have found Robert Sussman, a renowned primatologist who accepted me as a graduate student, but also the other faculty. Many of you know Patty Jo Watson, who recently passed. She welcomed me in the hallway my first week that I was a graduate student, and said, I know those signing chimpanzees in Central Washington University. I'm so glad you're here. We can talk about this. And it really made me feel at home at this prestigious university that I've been quite intimidated about joining. And then Richard Fox, who in the sociocultural course that all graduate students are required to take, had encouraged me to talk about chimpanzee cultures, which was not always a topic that anthropologists were open to. So I also would like my research to be inspired. When you're studying chimpanzees, it's not difficult to be inspired by Jane Goodall, obviously. She visited our campus a couple years ago. Jane was the first person to study wild chimpanzees and made discoveries about tool use. And you can see here an individual who is using a wand to extract termites from their earthen mounds. But there were alternative behaviors, differences, variants that were emerging from other parts of the chimpanzee range, the western extent where a different subspecies lived. And here we saw nut cracking, and this is my postdoctoral supervisor, Christoph Busch. So a picture about diversity of cultural behaviors was emerging from Africa, but we only had images from eastern and western areas, nothing from this big area in Central Africa. It wasn't even known how many chimpanzees resided in that forest. And it's a big forest. It's 2.5 million square kilometers, the second largest tropical forest in the world. But again, WashU was key because there were graduate students that had worked in that region before. And so they had heard about a young volunteer named David Morgan, pictured in this photo in the younger years. And they said, you should write him a letter. So I did on WashU stationery. And I said, I'm a graduate student. I've got skills in behavior, no field credentials whatsoever. But David was willing to take a gamble. And so I joined him in the Gulago Triangle just a few months after the project had been launched. Chimpanzees notoriously take a long time to habituate to human presence. It can take 12 years for them to become accustomed to you. And so we decided we had to come up with some innovations to advance this research more quickly because we didn't have 12 years to make any type of advancement. And so we used camera traps, and we made these from pelican cases and different types of cameras that were available at the time. You couldn't just go to Walmart or Cabela's and buy a Bushnell camera trap. You had to make them yourself. A lot of chimpanzee experts said that they probably wouldn't work. The chimpanzees would take those down. But oh, were they wrong. 20 years of oh, were they wrong. And now many people have adopted this technology because it's non-invasive and you can do broader surveys than just foot surveys. Would you mind, Doug, cueing the video? So the chimpanzees arrived with their tools, and we saw a different type of tool technology than had previously been documented, even after decades at Gombe and at Thai by Christoph Bosch. So here, Aida's using a stout stick, and her daughter's got one that she's going to try to do something similar with, but doesn't have the strength to insert it into the nest. But they're making a tunnel into the subterranean termite nest. And Aida's holding a second tool in her mouth. So they have a tool set. They have a puncturing tool and they have a fishing probe that they use one after the other. And you can see Aida's even modifying that to make it more efficient. This is incredible with regards to animal tool technology and culture, and really did make quite a splash when it was first published. But the conservation crowd wasn't as impressed because behavior and conservation weren't really that compatible at the time. It wasn't going to tell us how many apes were in the area and what we needed to do to conserve them. So we had noticed that what they were publishing are numbers of ape nests that they convert to numbers of chimpanzees and gorillas, but it's really difficult to tell apart a chimpanzee and a gorilla nest when they're built in the trees. Could you cue this video, Doug? So here we see a chimpanzee who's building a nest in the canopy, and they fold down leaves and make this cushiony bed. All great apes make nesting platforms like this to sleep at night, and you can walk through the forest and count them. Since we had observed the chimpanzees making these nests, we could differentiate them quite easily. And we published a paper. It's one of my favorite graphs. I had to put it in because we could tease apart the apes, the chimps, the gorillas very cleanly. And this increased the precision of all ape density estimates across Central Africa. And we found from participating in a publication that used our methods, this is 360,000 gorillas, 128,000 chimps whose lives were impacted by my stats courses here at WashU. So making an impact is also just inherent in the location where we work. We are in the Sangha River Tri-National Area, which is at the intersection of Cameroon, Congo, and Central African Republic. And these are protected areas and also forestry concessions. And when our project started, we were in a forestry concession. But the information about the unique chimpanzee cultures and the number of apes convinced the government to include those two study areas in a national park. So this was a way that we could have direct impact for our research. But I want to specifically mention some points about how WashU has changed the trajectory and the impact of my research. When I arrived at Washington University in this same building, I could remember Chancellor Wrighton saying, be the best in your field. Don't just do research, but make discoveries, unique contributions to science. And this is Risa, chimpanzee Risa Wrighton, and she's holding a pounding tool that is used to open beehives. Could you cue this video, Doug? So they use this to open the outer crust of a beehive, and they extract the honey. And we found that there were 20 other behaviors that chimpanzees in this forest were using to interact with their environment successfully. And this is the largest repertoire of chimpanzee tool behaviors ever documented, and also for any other animal species. And if you know differently, you should let me know. But I keep pretty good tabs on this. Also, we found that this is socially learned, that kids imitate what their mother is doing or emulate what their mother is doing or find the right location. So this would be called local enhancement with regards to social learning. And social learning is important for culture. That's how we transmit behaviors between individuals and maintain them over generations. So this is a chimpanzee culture, and it improves over time. There have been modifications that make their tools more effective. So it's quite exciting from a scientific standpoint. Washington University also encouraged me to expand beyond chimpanzees to think about other species. And the obvious choice are these Western lowland gorillas. They're twice as numerous. I mean, are they adorable? They are super adorable. But it takes also some years to habituate them, and you're going to be charged by silverbacks that are protecting their family groups. It will have important impacts, though, if this could be accomplished for a number of apes. As I mentioned, over 350,000 gorillas in this region overlap with chimpanzees, as you can see from the distribution of the central subspecies of chimpanzees in color and the crosshatch spaces where they overlap with gorillas. So again, these countries I mentioned, Republic of Congo, Cameroon, Central African Republic, and we can add Gabon to that as well. So we habituated a group of gorillas within the range of where we had studied chimpanzees, and we could make observations like this for the very first time. So this is a gorilla in the lower image portion of the image and chimpanzees in the top. And we found that they socially interacted when one species wasn't nervous and just immediately ran away. We can see them playing together, and feeding together in close proximity and whatnot. We made hundreds of observations of the chimpanzees together with the gorillas and could even do social networks between known individuals, and they had friendships. And these are the data that support it, but really you can see this when a gorilla arrives at a party of chimpanzees and sees a friend and goes, oh, I want to play with you, and runs right over to start initiating contact and playing not just for a few minutes, but for hours. And these friendships last over years. We've expanded our research further to include over 30 different bird and small and large mammals to be able to estimate the number of remaining numbers in these areas of animals in these areas using camera trap footage. So if you go to the 3rd floor of Macmillan Hall, you might not see in my lab primates, chimps, gorillas, but you could see elephants like this, duikers, little forest antelopes, anteaters, and so on and so forth. Here at Washington University, I was always thinking that I needed to be publishing my research on ape cognition and social behavior, but there were risks encroaching in our study area. So coming out from one of our field seasons, we saw this. There were logs on the side of the road. Extractive timber had arrived right at the edge of the national park. So what could we do? And my colleagues encouraged me to engage and think about how we could study this, and that's exactly what we did. So I focused on how to reduce the impact of logging on great apes to see which food species were impacted, how to protect certain areas, and how to improve standards for Forestry Stewardship Council, like the green timber that you buy here in the States. There are more risks. We had emerging infectious diseases like Ebola just a few hundred kilometers away. What do? We could be paralyzed and move out of the field site, but my colleagues at the medical school and at other institutions encouraged us to engage. So we started to document pathogen diversity, look at disease ecology, look at transmission pathways between chimps, gorillas, humans, and take more of a One Health approach, and started to develop protocols, practices, and publications to address those threats. We also took those little tool behaviors from each of the sites and magnified those into policy level impacts. And I wouldn't have done that had I not been here and had the support of my colleagues and the encouragement of our university administrators to have a bigger impact. I co-lead, as Dean Hu mentioned, the IUCN Working Group on Chimpanzee Cultures, and we recently developed a concerted action for chimpanzee behavioral diversity and culture, which means we wouldn't just be counting numbers of chimps, but thinking about the behaviors they learn as cultures. And this would impact 21 range states of chimpanzees. And again, thanks to our institution, I was able to travel to Uzbekistan in February to present this with my colleague, and it was adopted by 132 plus EU signatory countries that were present. I love St. Louis. I'm so happy to be here. What a great place to have a family, and my neighbors are here. Summit Avenue rules. It's family away from family, and it means so much to us to have these community connections. And the St. Louis Zoo and the St. Louis Science Center have really embraced our research. We've been able to present there a number of times at large-scale events like Primate Awareness Day and SciFest, and this past year reached over 15,000 people through science outreach. So just a couple brief outlooks on where I see things just even this week and moving forward with this prestigious Davis professorship. 25 years of primate research at Ndoki. We've come a long way. I've talked about density estimates, tool use behaviors, disease, reduced impact logging. We've been able to put together a special issue. These are the lead authors on the papers covering these types of topics. And I'm proud to say that 3 of those are WashU alum. Other folks are indigenous people from local communities in Congo, but we're talking about the types of things that really are important for the future of primatology in our field. And this, I was just working on the proofs today. Dean Hu mentioned the Living Earth Collaborative. I feel so fortunate to have been invited by Jonathan to join this initiative, and we're having so much fun. Strategic planning, laying out different events. We're focusing our 3 pillars on urban biodiversity, biodiversity and human well-being, or One Health, and global conservation futures. And I'm excited about a symposium that we'll have at the Missouri Botanical Garden on September 13th. We opened it up for participants, and immediately it ramped up to almost 150 people. And there are 38 organizations, campus, community, botanical garden, and zoo included. Absolutely amazing response. So we're looking forward to having WashU being a leader in this initiative locally, but also globally. So would you mind cueing this video? This is just the last video I wanted to share. When I was at the base camp a few weeks ago, one of our research assistants, Justin Ndambio, came in. He said, I would like to share this video that I took in the field and talk about it. Do you remember, Cricket, when we first met this gorilla? He was 1 year old, he was being carried by his mother, and the family wasn't habituated to humans yet. And look at him, he's so relaxed. And he said further, and they don't use objects. Gorillas don't use tools, but is this tool use? We should talk about this more in our publications. And then he asked the question that relates back to the rank and what we've learned from Great Apes. He said, what rank do you think this gorilla will achieve? And we watched him play. You know, he's not quite fully grown. He's about 10 years old. You can see that his crest is starting to form, but he's starting to act like a silverback. You'll see in a moment that he's starting to strut the behaviors. There you go, showing who's dominant. And I said, well, we'll have to wait a few years to see what happens. And I thank you so much for the opportunity to do that.
What a fascinating presentation, and I can see the very proud faces of Sky and Miles. You can see that beautiful, proud faces. I have to tell you that Cricket and I both got invited to give presentations at a recent Board of Trustees meeting. Was it in May or sometime last year? Yes. And so I attended Cricket's presentation. In the middle of that, I had to leave. I had to leave to give my own presentation. I was a little annoyed because the presentation was so fascinating. So I kind of wish that I didn't get invited. But so for the last 4 months, I've been looking forward to this event. So thank you for this wonderful, wonderful presentation, and congratulations for once again this prestigious recognition and a brilliant career. And congratulations to Dave, Sky, and Mile, and Claire as well. So let's give them another round of applause. I also want to thank all of you for joining us today to recognize Cricket's incredible accomplishments and celebrate the legacy of Jim and Jean Davis. This concludes the formal portion of today's celebration, and we have a reception back there. I hope you'll join us and offer your own congratulations to Cricket.